פרופסור ציפי ליבמן תברך מאוחר יותר אחר הצהריים, כי יש לנו הרצאה מרתקת של חוקרת שנמצאת באוסטרליה, שהולכת לדבר על נושא מרתק. אז אני מבינה שאיליין מנחה את ההרצאה. איליין, את נמצאת? תודה.
אז שלום כולם, ואני נורא שמחה להיות איתכם ולהכיר לכם. The session is in English, so I'll start to speak in English. Sorry. I want you to meet an amazing lady who is
Hi everyone.
She's done amazing things. I mean, she's gone through so many different fields, and she has experience in so many different things. And we'll hear more about it as we go along. But recently, in the last few years, Mai's gone into the area of neurons and genes and all different types of things that help us in the field of multiculturalism. So I think the best thing is that, you know, we meet you first of all, and maybe you give an introduction about yourself as well, so we can hear more about you. So if you can turn off your cameras, if you're not Mai or me, so we can have better reception. Thank you very much. Mai, can you put your camera back on so we can see you? And so we can start the presentation. Mai, can you put your camera back on, please? We're talking to her in Australia, and I think we're really pleased that she's staying up this evening. It's late at night in Australia. So can you tell us about yourself? And we have your PowerPoint ready, so Howie, if you can put the PowerPoint up so we can get going. Thank you.
Oh, great. Just a quick question, Elena, you have the PowerPoint that I just sent you or the PowerPoint that my assistant sent you?
Oh, I think it was, this is the one.
Oh, okay. Oh, so this is the one, my assistant. Yeah, I just found out that our titles are a little bit different.
Okay,
okay, but that's okay. The content the same.
Click on the button at the top to move the images. But where you see
okay, so how can I click on?
You can just click on the screen.
Okay. Oh, okay, perfect. So that's how I would go back and forth. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. So can you please go back to the first one? Thank you. So I can start. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here. It's my first time with a completely online conference with everyone everywhere around the world. So it's very exciting. So Elena already said something about me. I work in Amsterdam University of Applied Science. It's a business school, international business school, but I've been involved in a lot of different things. So the last 4 years, I've been a lot into cultural neuroscience, and that's where I got different insight into my main discipline and see if we can use neuroscience to have a different perspective of looking at what we have in the mainstream theories. So today I'm going to share a little bit about my model. It's a new model that I created to explain a little bit more for people in the field about how neuroscience, how biology can give us a different perspective, even change our point of view about multiculturalism, about internationalization, about cultural diversity. So the title of this one is Makes Cultural Diverse, but we can also talk about how gene, neuron, and brain can contribute to our insight about multiculturalism. So on the left-hand side, you see the cover of my book. It was published last year. It's a textbook on intercultural communication, but I put on a little bit of the insight from biology and neuroscience just to give a different viewpoints. So I'm going to move to the next one. I'm going to click on, okay, here you go. So I will start with a very basic.
Just one quick thing.
Yeah, sure.
Just for the audience, anyone who has a question while Mai's talking, just write it down here at the bottom in the chat, and we'll take the questions as we go along. Okay. I explained to her that, you know, when you're talking in Israel, it's not the same as in Australia. People ask questions. And there also is a translation on 2 different channels in Arabic and in Hebrew, so you can hear a simultaneous translation of the lecture.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's great. Thanks. Yeah, I have the chat open, so just pop in the question as I go along. I try to finish the whole PowerPoint in about 20 minutes, and then we have more time for Q&A. So back to where I started. On the screen now, you see there are 2 main viewpoints: cultural diversity or cultural culturalism. So number 1 is behaviorism, and it has been there for a very long time. It's very established, it's a mainstream, it's very dominant. And it sees humans are born as blank slate. So we are born as a white paper, so to speak, and we are ready to install the culture that we need to have in order to be able to live in the society. And that is where the story like Tarzan comes in. You know, you just have this beautiful white paper to for your society, your parents, your school to write in, and you become the person as a consequence of these social interaction. And that is why we have Hofstede, and I hope that many of you are familiar with him. His theories are very, very dominant, and he said that culture is software of the mind, meaning that we are like computer, and culture is like a software. We install and we run accordingly. So I live in Holland and Australia, so I have a little bit of mixed software that I would run accordingly as Australian or Dutch. However, it is being questioned more and more, but it's still not a mainstream. And I would hope that my effort is a little bit of a contribution to the ongoing discussion that it is not as simple as such. We are not born as blank slate. I bring into the field intercultural communication, a new way of looking at it, and I call it interdisciplinary because it's not just biology, it's psychology and management all involved. And I propose that culture is not fixed. It's not just there as a software for us to install. It is very diverse. It is socially learned, so we know that. It's behaviorism, just like the first one, but it is also influenced by environment. It is also inherited from our gene and DNA. And it is so influenced by the way our brain works as well. And I'm going to show you, hopefully, in the next 15 minutes, how everything is so dynamic. So we can be an amazing, amazing adaptive mechanism to, everything is helping us to adapt to new culture. Our brain, our gene, our behavior, our conscious, everything is very dynamic. It's not static at all. It's very dynamic. And it's all with the main purpose of helping humans to adapt to the new culture as quick as possible, as well as possible in the most effective way. So let's move on. And I hope to get a lot of questions from you later on. I'm going to go from one step to the next slowly. So number 1 is that culture is very is influenced by environment, and is influenced by gene as well. So here I have the model that I created, and you see that gene and culture are they cooperate with each other. I'm going to give you one example. I was born in Asia. According to the blank slate theory, when I moved to Europe to live, I should absorb the new culture, just like a blank slate. However, I figure out that my gene plays a role as well. What my mother and my father gave me plays a role as well. If I can adapt to the new culture quick enough, or if I can fit in the new culture in the most effective way. So if we look at the theory of biology and culture, there is one theory called gene-culture co-evolution theory. And it's simply about how gene evolve, change to support the way that we can live in a culture effectively. So for example, I would have some genes to make me live in Asia more effectively than in Europe, or the other way around. Some people would have the gene to support them to live in another culture more effectively. So it's not just the culture being run in our brain as a software. Our gene plays a role as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit more in this theory with detail. So let's go to the next slide. It's a little bit more complicated, but I try my best to explain it. So on the screen, you'll see two maps. One is about collectivism and individualism. So how people are very attached to a group, are a little bit more on themselves. So that's collectivism and individualism. So in this study, the researchers matched this map with a map of depression genes. On the left-hand side, you see the map of depression genes. So this is a gene, we call it depression, but let's make it a little bit less vulnerable. Say a gene that is very sensitive to social interaction. So people with these genes are very sensitive to reading facial expression, knowing what other people are thinking, and react emotionally to what they get from the others. And because they are very sensitive, they can become quite depressed if the situation is not very supportive. Now, if you look at this map in front of you, you will see that depression gene is very high in Asia, where I come from originally, and not so high in Europe, where I live right now. So what is your guess? Is that Asian people would be more depressed, right? That's logical because they have more depression genes, right? So they are more depressed. That is very interesting. That is not. It's the other way around. People with depression genes in Asia, they are less depressed because we record a much higher level of depression in the Western societies and not in the Asian society, despite that they have the level of depression genes in the other way around. So how can we explain this? And I'm going to go to the next slide just to show you a little bit more. In order to know the answer for this question, very puzzling question, we need to know what happened thousands or probably hundreds of thousands years ago. So let's say our ancestors moved to different parts, different regions in the world. And when they moved to Asia, they found out that in Asia, there was a very high level of pathogens. These are fungus, these are germs, these are viruses that can easily cause you serious diseases. So what did our ancestors do? They decided that, or well, somehow they found out that if you live closely together, if you attach to each other, if you listen to each other, if you follow the whole group and not just being rebellious and go on your own, you have more chance to survive. And slowly they develop a value of collectivism because that is much better for them to survive. Now, when the value is established, so when everything was like said and done, yes, group attachment is better for survival. Genes came in. So it somehow they cooperated with cultural value and say that, okay, people with depression genes, because they are very easy to read each other's emotion, facial expression, they are very sensitive to others' ideas and opinion. They fit much better in a collectivistic society. And because collectivistic value is very important for survival, this gene slowly developed and get a little bit more dominant because it is better for the value, it's better for the survival. And that is why this gene and these values go hand in hand together. Now, then you ask, okay, so are they not depressed at all? They're not, because they live in a collectivistic society. They have the group bond, they have the group attachment that help them to get over depression. So even though they have the depression gene, they are not depressed. On the other hand, this depression gene helps them to live as a group and to survive as a group. So you see, this is a very, I hope, easy to understand and very clear example of how culture is not just learned, it's inherited. So even though I live in Europe and I live in Australia, I still have the depression gene in my own body. And if I look at other immigrants who move to a different culture, so we have a diverse cultural society, a multicultural society with a lot of people moving from a different cultures. Some of these people would have the depression gene in their body. And we would have to question, do they have the support that they need? Because in their original hometown, they have a whole network of friends and families and relatives to support them. But when they move to a different society where that network is missing, will they be more prone to depression? And I have to say that it is yes. There are not so many studies that prove the point, but one or two have figured out that people who come from society with high depression genes, so the Asia, if they have no network to support them, they are more likely to get depressed. So you see that how gene and culture cooperate with each other to help us survive and fit in a culture that we're supposed to live. So let's move on. Yes, sure.
Just to clarify something. In Israel, we're a very, very multicultural society. You put my camera
yes.
on. We're a very multicultural society. People coming from all over the place. And so what you're saying is it's much preferable that when you come to a new society to stay with or to live with people who come from your own society as well, to have that collectivist network.
I would say that's a very logical thinking, but not so fast, not too fast, not too fast. Because that would mean that I do not fit very well in Europe, right? And you see that I'm very happy, I'm smiling all the time. So there must be something else going on. My gene clearly do not stop me from evolving and integrating in a new culture. So let's move on. Let's move on to see if gene really just the only one in here. I'm going to move a little bit faster in this one. So this is where we stopped last time. I'm going to move in and see how brain and behavior involved, and also to answer the question of Lina as well. So now here in this slide, you see brain and behavior. What do I want to say about the brain behavior? About 20 years ago, or 15, 20 years ago, we had the idea that our brain was fixed as well. That we were born with a brain structure with a certain amount of neuron, and they stay that way until we die. For the last 15 years, we figured out that it's not true. Our brain is actually constantly in the process of changing. And why does it change? This is really interesting because it changes for us to adapt to the new culture. And it changes by the way that we behave, by the action that we take every day. Okay, so I'm going to show you the next one. This is a little video, and I'm not sure how to play it. So I will just click it. Oh, no, it doesn't work. So can I go back, Lina, go back to and see how we can play that video? It's just a very interesting video. It's just like just probably 20 seconds.
Can you send me the link to the video? The video's, hang on, I'll try and see if it's in your file.
Yes, the link is in the PowerPoint. So I created that in the PowerPoint. If you click on the link.
Get it from your file, don't worry.
Okay, great. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to explain a little bit. What you see on the video right here on the screen right here is our neural network. It started very, very simple. But after just, I remember 70 hours of learning a new language, our neurons just dynamically and very richly communicate with each other and create so many new branches, so many new connections. It started as a garden and it ended as a forest. This is a forest you are looking at. At the beginning, it was very sparse. I hope the video works. If not, you can look at it later.
You didn't include it with the PowerPoint. I'm sorry. If it's on YouTube, I can get it.
Okay, that's all right. But anyway, we can look at it later on. But I just want to show you that it started as a garden. And after 70 hours of learning, it grows so big. It's like bacteria, you know. And then it grows so quickly into a forest after just 70 hours of learning a new language. Not even learning constantly, just 70 hours continuously as 24 hours per day. So why I want to, okay, if the video is not working, I'm going to show you this one. Now, this is a model that I created to make the idea a little bit simpler. You see here, our two neurons communicate with each other. They do not touch each other, but they communicate with neurotransmitters. So the more we think of something, the more we act a certain behavior, or the more we communicate with someone in a certain way or certain routine or ritual, what would happen to our brain? This is what happens. The body of the brain gets bigger. I would say the dendrite, so the end point of the neurons gets bigger. There will be more neurotransmitters being transmitted through the gap. And in the end, there will be a new branch. So the neuron, just like a tree, would grow a new branch if we have a certain thought, a certain behavior, a certain action repeated again and again and again. So right now, right here, right at this moment, your brain is growing just by listening to me. And you can say, oh, she says something that maybe I can recognize that later on. And already something is changing in your brain just by thinking, so to speak. So, oh, you get it. Great. Let's have 20 seconds looking at this amazing videos. So you see that the brain is it's just growing so quickly at the end. The neural network, I have to say, is the correct term for it. So you see, it started very sparsely. So you see the cell of the body cell, the neurons stay in the same place, but the branches would try to reach each other, try to communicate each other, try to grow more branches and touch each other in a way. So this is, I was a bit wrong when I say 70 hours, it's a little bit more. So it's now 124 hours and 128. And that is why if we exercise, if we listen to music, if we learn a new language, if we put ourselves out of the comfort zone, we give our brain a workout. It's very important that we have to put ourselves a little bit out of the comfort zone so it can have a little bit of a workout instead of just follow the habit every day. So this is how the brain is changing to help us to adapt to the new culture. So I may have the depression genes, that's very bad news, but my brain has amazing capacity to help me to adapt to the new culture. That's why I can meet new people, I can go to a new society in a new country and still live in, as a happy woman. I hope I answered your question, Elena. And I would like to show you how amazing brain is changing just in the moment. So we were talking about how repeated behavior can change our brain, but this is in the moment. This is a very complicated research, but I want to make it very simple for you to understand. I'm going to imagine that I would give half of you a text with a lot of pronouns such as I, me, and my, very individualistic. And the other half of you, a text with a lot of we, they, and ours, and us. After reading the text, maybe take you 5 minutes. I'm going to give you a task. So those of you who had the text with only individualistic pronouns, so I, me, and I, me, mine, you're going to act more individualistically. You're going to think about yourself a little bit more. You become a little bit more selfish, so to speak. And the other half of you who read the text with plural pronouns, you're going to act a little bit more collectivistic. So you're going to have your mind a little bit more on the side of the group and not yourself. And this study show exactly the same thing, that our brain can split, can adapt to the new context just by reading a book, even a page in the book. And that goes on to show how important the environment is around us, who you are talking to, what kind of movie you watch, what kind of friends you talk to, because all these elements create parameters in your brain and make you act individualistic or collectivistic. Your brain is multi-control. It adapts, and it adapts in the moment, depending on the framework that you put it in just previously to your behavior. And of course, with the behavior comes the next behavior, because the more of a repeated behavior you do, the more of the same behavior you have. And the same goes with thought as well. So let's move into one of the last connection. We talk about gene a lot, and we talk about how gene evolve to help us to adapt to the new culture. I would like to point to a very important a new discipline in biology. Is called epigenetic. It means that the DNA we get from our parents is fixed, but the proteins, there's some elements, some chemical structure on top of the gene that control the genes. They are not fixed. So we say gene chain, but actually the protein that is at top of the gene chain. So for example, I'm going to try to make a good example for you guys. I'm sitting here in Sydney, and there are lights in my room, okay? So these lights are the DNA. It's fixed. We're born with it. We cannot change it. But through the way that we behave, our lifestyle, the way that we exercise, the way that we talk, the way we eat, we can turn on and off this light. So I'm going to turn off the light right now for you to see. I'm going to turn this light off. So you see here. So I just turn the light off. The DNA is still there, but I turn the light off, meaning that the way I live, for example, if I live in a family that is not very supportive, my gene is not going to work, even though it's there. If I have a gene for intelligence, for example. But if I live in a family that is not very supportive, that kind of family just turn the gene of intelligence off in my body. And even though I have the gene for being a smart girl, I will not act smartly. So I'm going to turn the light on because I want to. So that goes on to show that our gene is also very flexible. And why is it so flexible? Because it is there for us to help us to adapt to the new environment. If we live in a new environment, those epigenetic mechanism will help us to adapt as quickly as possible, even though we cannot change our DNA, but somehow the protein on top of the DNA can change, so we can adapt as quickly, as effectively as we can. So that's the behavior engine that I just showed you. And I have here a very good conclusion for this one, that culture is not fixed as well. So if we look at the whole situation, we see that everything is changing. We have environment changing, genes changing, brain behavior changing, and altogether our culture is also not fixed because it changed to help us to survive. I put here Korea because it's a very interesting example for us to see that people of the same origin can develop into two completely different cultures. So culture is not fixed, it's changing as well. So what can we conclude from the whole thing? I'm gonna go to the final slides and say that, oh, here we have also the context. So I have the context around, because when we analyze a situation, we need to take into account everything: gene, culture, brain, behavior, environment, because everything is changing, as we just discussed, as I just explained to you, and we will discuss with each other later on. So what can we say from the whole thing? That culture is very diverse, and when we talk about a multicultural society, we just have to bear in mind that it's not just culture as in value. Everything can be very dynamic that contribute to the diversity of culture in such a multicultural society. First, we need to talk about the impact of environment. The environment can change the way we think about culture and can change the way we shape our culture. We need to think about the dynamic interaction of nature and nurture because gene change as well. And we would have to bear in mind the plasticity of our brain because our brain is very dynamic in helping us to adapt and to form a new culture. Also, the power of repeated behaviors, the way that we have a certain habit, a certain routine, a certain rituals, a certain way of doing can slowly change the value as well and change even the deep-seated values in the culture. So that is to say that we would look at multicultural society a little bit more from the biological point of view and see that we are not just a product of the culture, so not blank slate, that we're born and have a software of Israeli software culture to run in our brain, but we can proactively choose what is good to maintain and what we can change, what we can reshape by creating new behaviors, by creating new communication contexts, by creating a new routines, because slowly it's going to change our genes, slowly it's going to change our brain, slowly it's going to change our cultural values. And that is the way that we create a culture that we can all live together in a harmonious way. So that's the final message I'd like to convey. And I'm very happy to have your Q&A right now. I have a few here in my chat box. Okay, this is from Dr. Shadi Abu Khadara. I want to read out to all of you, and I hope I can answer that. Thank you, Ma. It's very interesting. Thank you, Shadi. I think that's a book on Norma Deutsch is speaking about that brain that changes. So yes, this is a very, very good book. That's a book that I normally suggest for people with mental health problems, people with brain damage. It is a book about a few cases, amazing cases about people who can completely recover from many serious mental health and brain damage just by forging a new behavior, forging a new routine, forging a new way of living that they can change in this way and change the function and the structure of the brain and help them to recover and become normal again. And the same, we can do that to cultural values as well. You may hate your neighbor, you may dislike your colleague, but if you started to break the circle, we say, okay, I'm not active. That person is a good person. That's a very good beginning already because you're going to change your brain, you're going to switch it, make it out of comfort zone, make a new friend. And once you acted, yes, when you've acted, your brain's going to follow that act because once given a role, you're going to act that role. And that is very interesting, the power of the action.
Right. We have translators here, and so if there are any questions from the people listening in Hebrew and Arabic they'd like to ask, please feel free to ask. At the moment, I can't see any questions here online, but if anyone would like to speak and ask questions, please feel free to raise your hand or take the microphone. So I just wanted to say that Dr. Howin Fuon May also took part in the tech course that we wrote on multiculturalism. She's an actual avatar in the course, and thank you very much for that. And
thank you.
And a lot of questions came out of this from looking at this the diagram and the change of the context. And I think many people have felt it when you go to a different country. It's as if you feel yourself changing as you move to a different country, as if your genes become adapted over time to be in different places. And I think many of us have felt that. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from other people's experiences of what it feels like to be in a different culture, even within Israel, because many times you feel that you have this feeling that it's sort of instability and a feeling that things aren't the same. You just feel uncertain about things because your brain can't adapt yet to doing that. So it'd be interesting to hear from people in the audience about things that they felt like this and how they can connect with this fascinating lecture.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, I'm Miri Schoenfeld, Elaine's partner. Elaine, if you can close your microphone. I'm a zoologist, and one of my looking at our attitudes to multiculturalism and thinking about this comes from looking at animals, and I think that if we speak about genes, we have some similarities, and I can see animals that like white cats that will throw their babies if they are black, and vice versa. They will, get rid of those who are in different colors. And I'm just thinking if this is not something that is that we have in our genes when we are born. What is your thinking about it?
Can I clarify your question just to make sure I understand you? So, your suggestion is that in animals they also have the genes of survival, right? They would even commit a brutal act just for survival.
And I think
and
that
if we have that as well. Yes and no. There's a very good book on it. I'm going to write in the chat a book for you. This Why for Culture. Why for Culture. I have a typo, yes, but from Mark Bajo. Now, so this is a very good book. Mark Bajo is a biologist, and he wrote a very good book about how to look at culture from the biology point of view. And he connected very well the question that you just asked with the question of, is it different or the same when it comes to as human beings? Now, yes, because we do have that survival mechanism that the animals have, that we may commit brutal acts, sometimes non-human acts, in order to survive. No, because animals do not have culture. Only human beings have culture. So what I mean with culture as in the biology point of view is like language, music, and everything. Animals can only learn something, but they cannot accumulate knowledge. They cannot tell the next generation that, okay, if you want to go to Israel, then you need to buy a ticket from here, and then they cannot accumulate knowledge to shorten the distance of a nation, But humans do. We have internet, we have stories, we accumulate knowledge, so we don't have to go such a long way. And that's culture, that's language, that's music. And in a way, Mark Bajo is a biologist that follows the group selection. So we may commit brutal act for survival, but for the group as a whole. So if you think about, I would say suicide bombers, for example, or those who kill people or kill themselves. They kill themselves. It's a little bit against survival, right? But if you think from the biology point of view, we do that because we know that our individual survival cannot exist if the group survival is not there. So that kind of the culture of looking for the group and living for the group is something that the animals do not have, and we do.
In some groups they have altruism, so they do things like this in some social animals. But thank you for the reference. I will look for it. Thank you very much.
So
yes,
we have another question here, which goes back to what we were speaking about depression, about the high rate of suicide cases in Scandinavian countries, and how does that connect?
I don't know about the suicide cases in Scandinavia due to long physical distances between the houses, so I am afraid that I cannot comment on that research. I can only connect it with what I just presented to you, is that depression is quite high in the West, even though the depression gene is lower there. And I have to say that this is maybe one of the main factors, but also other factors should be taken into account. For example, the modern society. We have moved too fast. There's a term for it. We have moved too fast from a small group living on the savannah as our ancestor to a modern society. So we have millions of years living on the savannah in a very small group of like 50 people. We know everyone, you know, and everybody who is different means a threat. If you look different from me and you dress different from me, the amygdala is going to activate, say, like, hey, threat, you know, they come and take our food away because we live in a very small. So our brain has been constructed in a way that if you see difference, it means threat. And in about a few thousand years, we moved from that society into a modern society where every single moment we see differences. And every single moment we see threats. So in the old time, threats comes once in a while, like a lion comes near your village and another tribe comes in and attack your village. It comes once in a while. Now, if you look at the Facebook, if you look at the social media, if you look at the TV, threats come in constantly, and we see differences constantly. However, our brain is still structured in a very ancient way, so it does not react very well to the new modern life. It does not evolve quick enough to help us to adapt to the modern life. I'm talking about the physical, biological structure of the brain. And you know, the whole brain plasticity is a very good. It's a hope that we hold on to, but sometimes it's still not there yet, not 100% there yet for us as a solution to deal with the modern society. So in this research, I cannot comment on that, but my guess is that the modern life is having a toll on us, having a burden on us. And it's not just the Scandinavian people, but if you look at the whole society, depression level is increasing, even in Asia.
I know once people thought it was just the cold weather in the winter. But
well, I can attest to that.
Anyway, we're out of time, and we could actually go on forever talking to you. It's been absolutely fascinating. I do recommend you to look on the program of the site in English, where we have a detailed